My parents called me a dropout and gave my sister a $30,000 wedding, so I built a company worth $80 million in silence. Hi, I'm Julian, 27, and last spring my sister walked down the aisle in a $25,000 dress while I sat 3 states away watching my app's valuation break $80 million. No applause. No family. Just me and a lukewarm cup of gas station coffee. For 27 years, I was the spare tire of the family wagon. The quiet one. The boy who didn't finish things. My sister Danielle? She was the prodigy, the performer, the one with a law degree from Stanford and a fiancé with perfect hair and a trust fund. Our parents called her our pride, like it was a title she earned in battle. I dropped out of college my second year, not because I was failing, but because I was building a tiny, buggy prototype of a predictive scheduling tool for small businesses. Nobody asked why. They just sighed. My mom called it another phase. My dad said, "You better hope your sister's willing to hire you one day." They loved her graduation photos so much they printed them on canvas. Mine? They framed a $15 Starbucks gift card and laughed about it like it was a cute joke. I kept that card. Still have it. Danielle's wedding was set to be the event of the year. Country club venue, monogram napkins, and a band flown in from New York. Me? I wasn't even in the wedding party. Just a seat filler. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a message. From Danielle. "Hey, just a heads up, we're doing a tighter guest list. Might be awkward with some of Mark's clients. I figured you'd understand. No hard feelings?" She disinvited me from her wedding. Via text. I stared at the message in my crappy apartment, surrounded by whiteboards full of code and empty Red Bull cans. And for the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't get mad. I just closed my laptop, pulled up the invite to the State Tech Awards in Austin, and RSVP'd. Because what nobody in my family realized, not Danielle, not my parents, not even my old roommates, was that the dropout they pitted had built something. Something real. Something powerful. And I was done hiding it. The Texas Tech Innovator Awards weren't your average local plaque in a conference room kind of thing. Think tuxedos, a governor, live-streamed acceptance speeches, and 5 founders under 30 being honored for building stuff that actually moved the needle. I hadn't planned to go originally. I was going to sit politely through Danielle's rehearsal dinner while people toasted her remarkable discipline, and field questions like, "So what do you do again?" from men in pastel golf shirts. But after that text? Screw it. I called Ethan, my CTO, part-time therapist, full-time chaos wrangler. "I'm going." He didn't even ask where. Just said, "About time." We upgraded our hotel, booked a stylist, yes, a stylist, and bought a midnight black suit that made me look like I belonged on magazine covers, not in code-stained hoodies. It cost more than I'd spent on groceries the entire summer. Worth it. I walked into that ballroom like I'd been born for it. And for the first time in my life, people noticed. Not because I was someone's son or Danielle's brother. Because I was Julian Miles, CEO of Schemasoft, a startup used by 5,400 small businesses to manage time, staff, and growth without needing a whole damn IT team. They called my name last. Governor Harper stood at the podium. And finally, our top award tonight goes to a founder who left school, faced the skepticism of everyone, including his own family, and built a company valued at over $80 million in just 4 years. She didn't have to say my name. The screen behind her exploded into my face, me, grinning awkwardly in a hoodie, holding the first version of our platform. People applauded like I'd just come back from war. I stepped onto that stage and said the truest thing I've ever said. I built Schemasoft because I was tired of watching brilliant small businesses struggle with clunky, overpriced software. And honestly, I built it because nobody believed I could. Laughter. Real, supportive, electric. And when she asked what advice I had for other founders? Build it anyway. Even if they don't ask about your work. Even if they only clap for someone else. Build it anyway. My phone buzzed off the table all night. Texts. DMs. Missed calls from my parents. Danielle too. "Why would you do this tonight of all nights?" she wrote. I just smiled at the screen. "Because you disinvited me. Because you made space." And I finally knew how to fill it. I didn't answer Danielle's text. Not that night. Not the next day either. Instead, I woke up in a 4-season suite I didn't pay for, One of our investors had sent a bottle of champagne and a handwritten card that just said, "You're not invisible anymore. Get used to it." My inbox had 187 unread messages. Investors. Journalists. People who remembered me from college and wanted to catch up. LinkedIn was a war zone. Schemasoft was trending. And back in Houston? Danielle was giving vows under a floral arch while half her wedding guests were scrolling Forbes under the table. At 2:42 p.m., a photo of me shaking hands with Governor Harper made the homepage. Caption: Julian Miles, 27, CEO of Schemasoft, awarded Texas Innovator of the Year. At 3:09 p.m., my father called. I let it ring. At 3:12 p.m., my mom texted, "Julian, please tell me this isn't real." At 3:14. "Why wouldn't you tell us?" At 3:18. "You've embarrassed your sister." That one made me laugh. Because I had spent years doing everything I could not to embarrass them. Dimming myself. Dodging conversations. Letting Danielle be the headline. Now I was the headline, and suddenly that was a problem. Ethan and I flew back to Dallas that night. Private jet courtesy of an investor who said, "You'll need the time to process." I didn't. I needed space. Distance. When I landed, my sister had called 8 times. The voicemail she left around 9 p.m. sounded like it had been rehearsed in a bathroom mirror. "Julian, you didn't have to make this week about you. This was supposed to be my moment." I didn't scream. I didn't even get mad. I just stared out the window of that jet, watched the city lights glow like embers under a sky that didn't care about anyone's expectations, and finally said it out loud. They were never going to clap for me. So I built something bigger than their applause. Then I turned off my phone. Because I wasn't finished rising. 3 days later, my parents showed up at the office. Unannounced. No text. No call. Just there. Our front desk pinged me. "Robert and Teresa Miles here to see you. They say they're your parents?" I stared at the message for a solid minute before replying. "Conference room B. Tell them I'll be in shortly." Ethan raised an eyebrow as I walked by. "Storm coming?" "Category 5. I said, smoothing the sleeves of my jacket. I walked in and there they were. Dad in his usual khakis and golf club polo. Mom in a stiff smile and pearls like she was auditioning for an apology-themed country club commercial. They looked at the whiteboard cluttered with our Q1 scaling strategy like it was written in Klingon. "This is quite the operation," Dad said finally. Mom nodded. "Very impressive. Very unexpected." Translation: "This doesn't look like failure. We're confused." I didn't offer them water. I didn't sit. I just asked, "Why are you here?" Dad cleared his throat. "We wanted to talk. About everything." "Oh?" I said. "About the years you spent pretending I didn't exist while Danielle collected awards like Pokemon cards?" Mom flinched. "That's not fair." I nodded. "You're right. It's generous." Dad pulled a checkbook from his pocket. I actually laughed. Out loud. "Seriously? It's the same amount we gave Danielle for the wedding. 30,000. He said. "We figured, if we're starting over." "You can't Venmo your way to redemption, Dad." He didn't respond. I sat down, finally. Looked them both in the eye. "You raised 2 kids. One got applause. The other got advice. One got Europe. The other got a coffee gift card. I didn't forget. I just built something so undeniable you'd have to drive across town and look me in the face." Mom's eyes welled. "We didn't know how far it had gone." "You never asked?" The silence in that room was like gravity, pulling hard, unavoidable. "We're sorry," Dad said finally. "Truly." I stood up and walked to the door. "You don't owe me money. You owe me honesty. If you want to rebuild something with me, anything, it starts with showing up without a checkbook." Then I opened the door. They walked out without another word. And I exhaled like I had lungs for the first time in years. The fallout was delicious. Not in the petty way. Not like revenge. More like a meal I'd waited my whole life to taste, and finally got to savor without asking permission. The Forbes article hit 2 million views within 48 hours. Schemasoft's inbox exploded. We had demo requests from a dozen Fortune 500 companies, 2 international conglomerates, and one very polite email from a Canadian bank that began, "Hi Julian, we think your product is wicked smart." My team was buzzing. Ethan was handling partnerships. Our new head of growth was triaging investor emails. And we hired a full-time assistant just to coordinate press. I floated. Not because I felt superior, but because for the first time, I felt real. Undeniable. And while all that happened, Danielle's wedding photos sat untouched in her social feed. The likes were thinner than usual. Comments suspiciously quiet. One of my old college friends texted me, "Yo, is it weird that people at her reception were watching your award speech?" I sent back a smiley face and the shrug emoji. I didn't have to gloat. The internet did it for me. Then, a week after the ceremony, she called. Not text. Not email. She called. I let it ring. Twice. Then I picked up. Her voice was quiet. Humble, almost. "Julian, I was wrong." "You were," I said simply. "I wanted to impress them." She continued. "Mark's family. The donors. I told myself it would be awkward having you there with, everything going on." "Everything going on?" I echoed. She sighed. "Your Honda. Your apartment. That t-shirt with the ramen stain." I chuckled. "You mean the startup uniform?" "I know that now," she said. "But at the time, I convinced myself I was protecting you. Truth is, I was protecting me." There it was. Not quite redemption, but real. "I miss your face," she said. And for the first time in a long time, I let her voice land in the soft place it used to live. "I miss you too." She asked if we could meet for coffee. Somewhere neutral. No parents. No performance. I said yes. But just coffee. Not forgiveness. Not yet. We met at a hole-in-the-wall cafe I loved, sticky tables, weirdly good espresso, zero judgment. Danielle showed up overdressed, naturally, in a camel coat and boots that screamed, "I might still be clinging to image." But her eyes? Not polished. Not Instagram ready. Just tired. She sat down across from me like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. "I didn't know what to wear," she admitted. "It's coffee, not Congress," I said, half smiling. We sat in awkward silence while the barista shouted names like he was running a raffle. Then she finally spoke. "Everything went wrong after the wedding." She stirred her coffee like it held secrets. "Mark's parents saw the article. His mom asked why I didn't mention I had a tech CEO brother who'd just shaken hands with the governor. She said it reflected poorly on the family narrative." I snorted. "Family narrative? You guys building a political dynasty or a group chat?" Danielle didn't laugh. Mark was upset. Not just about that. Everything. Said I was too obsessed with appearances. That he married a press release, not a person. Ouch. "Yeah," she said. "We're in counseling." I blinked. "That fast?" "You've been married, 10 days?" She nodded. "And 9 of them were a mess." I sipped my drink. "So you're here because your marriage is cracking and you need backup?" "No," she said quickly. "I'm here because I finally realized I can't build a life on borrowed applause." That hit harder than I expected. "I was raised to perform," she continued. "You were raised to grind. I always had the spotlight. You always had the work. I was the work," I muttered. "And I'm sorry for how much I took that for granted." Silence settled between us again, this time less bitter, more honest. "I don't need you to say you're proud of me," I said. "I just need you to stop pretending I'm not worth being in the photo." Her eyes shone. "You've always been worth it. I just didn't know how to step out of my script." I nodded. "Welcome to improv." We didn't hug. We didn't cry. But when we left, she paid for the coffee and said, "Next time you pick the place." There would be a next time. And that was new. By mid-spring, Schemasoft closed a $25 million Series B funding round, led by a VC firm that once ghosted me in college when I pitched them the prototype off a borrowed laptop and a wrinkled resume. Funny how that works. Our valuation passed $120 million. We hired 14 new engineers, opened a satellite office in San Francisco, and moved out of our ratty warehouse into a glassy downtown space with actual windows that opened and chairs that didn't squeak when you leaned back. It should have felt like I'd won. But success without peace just feels like noise. That's when the dinner invitation came. An actual paper card. Embossed. From my parents. "We'd like to invite you to dinner. Just family. Just you. No expectations. We want to understand." Ethan raised an eyebrow when I showed him. You going? I thought for a second. I think I have to. Not for them. For me. I needed to know if it was real. So, I drove back to the house I hadn't entered in almost a year. Same driveway. Same potted plants. Same feeling like I was stepping onto a stage I never auditioned for. My mom opened the door. Barefoot. No pearls. Just her. And for the first time ever, she looked nervous to see me. The dining table was set for 3. No Danielle. No extra guests. Just my parents. We didn't want distractions, my dad said. Just dinner. They served pasta. From scratch. Mom even burned the garlic bread a little. I think she was trying to prove something, like they were finally willing to be human with me. Halfway through the meal, Dad cleared his throat. I've been reading your interviews. The one with TechCrunch hit me hard. He looked me in the eye. You said you stopped trying to earn your parents' love and started building your own life. That you didn't need their applause. He paused. I just want you to know, we failed you. My fork froze midair. Mom took his hand. You were the quiet one, the easy one. And we mistook that for not needing as much. That was our mistake. I swallowed. Hard. We can't rewrite the past, she said. But we can stop pretending it didn't hurt. I set my fork down. For the first time in my entire life, I felt seen. Not just as Danielle's brother, or the family dropout, or the nice boy with potential. But as me. Thank you, I said. That matters. And it did. More than they'll probably ever know. 2 months later, I bought a house. Not for them. Not for optics. For me. A 3-bedroom modern build in East Austin, tucked on a quiet street where the trees made that rustling sound I hadn't heard since childhood, like a whisper saying, "You're safe now." It had high ceilings, natural light, and a little studio in the back where I could write, code, or just sit and not perform. I paid in cash. When I posted the view from the balcony, sunset over downtown captioned, "New chapter." I didn't tag anyone. No press. No humble brag. Just a soft statement to the universe that I had arrived, and not a single person could deny it anymore. My parents found out on Facebook. They didn't call to ask about the price or the square footage. They texted, "It looks peaceful. We're proud of you. No matter what." I believed them. Finally. Danielle and I met for lunch every few weeks. Always low-key, no staged selfies, no updates for anyone but us. She was in therapy now, working through years of approval chasing and people-pleasing. I didn't need her to change overnight. I just needed her to stop pretending nothing happened. And she had. "I think I'm finally figuring out who I am without all the noise," she said one afternoon, poking at a bowl of roasted vegetables like it held metaphors. "Does it suck?" I asked. "Absolutely," she said. "But it also kind of rules." We laughed. My team surprised me with a framed copy of the original Forbes cover the day we hit 100 million in valuation. They gave it to me at a rooftop happy hour, right before Ethan toasted me. "To Julian," he said, raising his glass. "The founder who didn't wait for permission. The brother who rewrote the script. The man who made silence work in his favor." I smiled so hard my face hurt. Later that night, back home, I sat in the studio. There's this drawer in the desk I use sometimes. I opened it and pulled out the thing I never threw away. That $15 coffee shop gift card. Edges worn. Balance still unused. I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk, right next to our first customer contract. Not as a wound. As a marker. That's where the story used to be. This is where it is now. I got the call from UT Austin in late September. The business school wanted me back. Not as a student. As a keynote speaker. Resilience in tech, building without permission. That was the theme they pitched me. I laughed out loud when I read the email. I called Ethan. "They want me to speak at the school I dropped out of." He didn't miss a beat. "Hope they reserved a parking spot for your Tesla." We flew out the night before the event. I wore a navy blazer, white shirt, no tie, because ties were for men who still needed to be taken seriously. I didn't. 500 students packed the auditorium. Half were probably there for extra credit. The other half? You could see it in their eyes, they were me. The ones people underestimated. The ones carrying entire empires in draft mode on their laptops. I stood on stage, looked out at them, and said the only thing I knew for sure. Success isn't proving people wrong. It's building something so honest, so undeniably you, that their opinion no longer matters. I talked about Schemasoft, sure. About scaling, about systems, about the practical stuff. But when the Q&A came, it got personal. A girl in the third row raised her hand. Did your family ever come around? I took a breath. They did, I said. But the real turning point wasn't when they started clapping. It was when I stopped needing them to. The room went quiet. Then the applause came. Not polite. Not out of obligation. Loud. Lasting. Real. Later, I walked the campus alone for a bit. Same sidewalks. Same buildings. But I didn't feel like a dropout retracing steps. I felt like a founder reclaiming ground. At the edge of the quad, I pulled out my phone and opened a message from Danielle. She'd watched the live stream. You made me cry, dork. Also, I applied for a job today and didn't ask for anyone's approval first. First time ever. I typed back. That's how you know it's real. And it was. 2 weeks after the keynote, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. Return address Danielle Miles. No emojis. No stickers. Just paper. Pen. Her actual handwriting. Inside was a single-page note. Julian, I know I've said I'm sorry. But I wanted to say it without a text bubble, without a screen, and without expecting anything in return. You didn't just build a company. You built you. And watching you, has changed how I see everything. I hope someday we can be more than siblings again. I hope we can be friends. Danielle, I didn't cry. I didn't pace the room. I just stood there at my kitchen counter, holding that note, and whispered, finally. Not because it fixed everything, but because it didn't try to. A week later, she stopped by my new house. No makeup. No curated outfit. Just Danielle. She walked in, looked around, and said, You did good. Then she handed me something. A tiny frame. Inside? The photo from my keynote. Me on stage, grinning like a lunatic. Behind me, the screen flashing the Schemasoft logo. She'd written a caption in Sharp at the bottom. No permission required. That night, we sat on the back deck, two siblings who had been strangers for years, trading stories like kids on a sleepover. She told me she left Mark. Said she realized she'd built her life on expectations, not truth. I told her how lonely the climb had been, but how worth it felt now. You were right, she said. Approval doesn't mean anything if you have to twist yourself to get it. I raised my glass. To untwisting. She clinked it. And to building loud enough that the silence can't swallow you. We didn't talk about the wedding. Or the years I spent invisible. We didn't need to. We were here. And finally, that was enough. It's wild how fast things normalize. 1 minute you're begging your parents to see you. The next you're getting texts like, Mom, your father printed that photo of you and the governor for his office. Framed it himself. Crooked but proud. Dad, your software fixed my friend's restaurant scheduling. He thinks you're a wizard. Danielle even sent a photo last week, her, volunteering at a community nonprofit, covered in paint and grinning like she just remembered how to breathe. No filters. No captions. Just the words. Feels good to build something real. As for me, I still drive the same used Tesla. Still keep the coffee gift card pinned to my corkboard. Still sit at my desk some nights, staring at the screen, thinking about all the versions of me I had to outgrow to get here. Schemasoft is in talks for expansion to Southeast Asia. We're testing integrations with health tech platforms now. We hired a head of culture, because yes, it turns out culture matters even when your team is under 50. I still walk into our office some mornings and get hit with that dumb, stunned feeling. They tried to forget me. Now they can't? But the truth is, it's not about them anymore. Hasn't been for a while. This life? I built it. I own it. And every time someone says, You're lucky, I smile and think, luck didn't build this. Being ignored did. Being underestimated did. And I did. I'm 28 now. My company just crossed $50 million in annual revenue. We're expanding into Europe next quarter, hiring our 70th employee. And I still keep my old laptop on a shelf above my desk, screen cracked, keys worn down from all the nights I typed like the only way out was through. Because it was. I don't measure my worth in headlines anymore. Or funding rounds. Or parental pride. I measure it in peace. In mornings when I wake up knowing I didn't shrink for anyone. In emails from first-gen founders who say, "Your story made me start. Danielle and I? We're good. Not perfect. But real. My parents? They're still learning how to love without control. That's enough for me." The coffee shop gift card is still pinned to my board. Not a grudge. A mile marker. A reminder that silence didn't break me. It built me. And no matter who didn't clap, I stood up anyway. And I kept building. That's the legacy now. No permission required.